It's a brand new season of the Parsha podcast. It is year 9 of the Parsha podcast, and we thank the Almighty for giving us the wherewithal and the ability to record so many Parsha podcasts. Hitherto, 8 years of the Parsha podcast, and we hope and pray that we're successful in releasing the Parsha podcasts of year 9 with the unending help of the Almighty. Thank you so much, Hashem Almighty God, for all that you've given us hitherto. And please, God, help us in the future as well. I want to thank, of course, the listeners who've been there through thick and thin with me from the Torch Center in Eastern Texas. I want to thank, of course, the donors who supported and continue to support our organization, Torch the Parsha Podcast. It's year 9 of the Parsha Podcast, and we have a brand new theme. There's a new theme in this year's season of the Parsha Podcast. In 5781, it was the A and Q. In 5782, it was the exquisite insight. In 5783, it was to raise your Parsha IQ. Last year, 5784 was Dad, deep and deeper. And this year, 5785, with the help of the Almighty, Torah is your ID. What do we stand for as a nation? What's our ID? Who are we? What's our essence? It's Torah. When were we officially forged into a nation? At Sinai, with the revelation, with the giving of the Torah. That's when the Almighty said, if you accept the Torah, you will become a kingdom of priests and a holy nation. Every day we say, Asher bachar banu mikol ha'amim, God selected us from all the nations, v'nasan lanu es Toraso, and He gave us His Torah. There's a famous line from the Sa'ad Yagon, Ein umasenu uma, ella b'torasa. Our nation is only a nation with our Torah. Torah. It's your ID. It's our ID. And in this year's season of the Parsha Podcast, please God, we'll have ID, an idea, an insight on the Parsha, and please God, a dilemma as well. And given that this is the new year, we have a new initiative as well. For years and years, I've been recording the Parsha podcast almost exclusively alone. I'm in the studio Torch Center. It's me and my microphone. Most of the other shows that I do are with a live audience, either live in person or on Zoom. But the Parsha podcast has been almost exclusively just me and you via this microphone. But I'm announcing today a trial. We're going to try doing something a bit new and novel. We're going to begin to record the Parsha podcast live every week at the same time, and it'll be available for anyone to join on Zoom. Anyone can join. It's going to be on torchzoom.com. That's the direct link to the Torch Zoom account. And we're going to record it, please God, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Central. Now, there's a few reasons why I wanted to try this. For one, it's actually kind of hard to record by yourself. It's kind of lonely. Yes, I have the microphone to give me some solace, but still, it's much more exciting. There's more energy, in my opinion, with a live audience with people there. I also think it's helpful for me to have a fixed time. It's easier for me to plan out the week, to know that Tuesdays at 8 p.m. on Torch Zoom, there are people there that are going to be waiting to hear it. There's a deadline. I know when I have to be ready to record. And I think also maybe some of y'all might enjoy it as well. You know, if you're listening in your earbuds by yourself, sometimes there's a benefit to be listening with other people and to have the opportunity to engage. You know, we're going to open up the Zoom room beforehand. People could chat. And afterwards, after the podcast is recorded, you can ask questions. I think it could be more of an engaging experience. I understand it's not for everyone, especially those of y'all who like to listen at 2 times speed. To hear me speaking at just 1 time speed might be frustrating. And I understand some people listen when they drive, when they commute, when they work out, they go for walks, or they prepare for Shabbos. It's not for everyone. It's an experiment. I want to try it, see if it's something that clicks. It's a trial. I'm going to do it, please God, to the end of Genesis, and then we will reevaluate. Obviously, we're not starting today. I don't even want to start next week, Parshas Noach. We'll start in 2 weeks from tonight, Parshas Lech Lecha. The Parsha podcast live on Zoom. I actually looked at the calendar. I think 2 weeks from tonight and Tuesday night, that's actually election night. And that's a busy night for many. People are catching the early returns. Things are getting all tense. The returns are coming in and the overreactions galore are unfolding on the television. Lots of drama. But I'm going to be on torchzoom.com recording Please God that week's Parsha podcast and maybe studying together with you. And I'm pledging to try to do it, please God, for 10 weeks. So until the end of Genesis. And then we will reevaluate to see if this is something we want to go to full time. We're going to do it on Zoom, torchzoom.com. There's no need to register. Everyone's going to be muted for the podcast recording, but we'll have ample time for questions afterwards. And as always, my email address is rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. It's year 9 of the Parsha podcast. So let's begin. It's Parshas Bereishis. It's by far the most difficult Parsha of the 54 Parshas of the Torah. By far, this Parsha has more commentary than any other Parsha. In fact, I have a set of books on the Torah that are one book per Parsha. It's like a slip-cased volumes on the Parsha. And every Parsha has its own book. And it incorporates the text of the Torah with the Rashi and the Ramban and many of the other commentators. And by far the thickest book of them all is Parshas Bereishis. And it's also the only Parsha that we don't have a full week to prepare for. In fact, this year we have 0 days to prepare for. Friday is Simchas Torah. That's when we read V'zos HaBracha. And the very next day is Shabbos, the Shabbos of Parshas Bereishis. And there's so much here. It's such a packed Parsha. Of course, it starts off with Genesis. We have the creation in 6 days. And we have the cessation of creation on day 7. And we have Adam and Eve and humanity, and they're put in the garden. And there's the serpent, and there's the sin, and there's the consequences of Cain and Abel. And then we have the genealogy laying out the descendants of Adam and the line of 10 generations from Adam to Noah. Of course, Noah is going to be the primary character of next week's Parsha, Parshas Noach. There's so much to talk about, and there's never enough time, and especially not this week. We're still in the intermediate days of the festival of Sukkot. I had to sneak away to record. We have another 3-day festival upcoming. Our family, we like to take trips on these intermediate days. We went to the jumping place yesterday. We went to main event. The kids went to main event for laser tag. And today's Tuesday. It's the last day to record the Parsha podcast. I told the family, listen, today you can't count on me. I can help. I can help prepare for the festival. I can't join the kids on their excursions. I'm too busy. I have to record the Parsha podcast. It's year 9. And this is my last chance to record the Parsha podcast for Parshas Bereishis. And I'm not prepared. I just did V'zos HaBracha. You can't rely on me. I'm busy the whole day. And then I get a call. The kids want to go to paintball. They got a group rate to go with some of the kids in the neighborhood to go play paintball. Now, I've never done it. And plus, I'm kind of too old for this, right? But they started to persuade me and to pester me, and I kind of wanted to go. So I went, and we had a great time. And we all emerged with great memories and some iconic photos and several well-placed, juicy welts all over our body. So it's the most difficult Parsha. We have the shortest amount of time to do it. And that's compounded with all the extracurriculars of this week. It's late, but we squeezed it in. And we're here in the nick of time. It's Parshas Bereishis. It's year 9 of the Parsha podcast. So let's begin. I wanted to focus on a part of the Parsha that I don't remember ever doing in depth. And that's at the end of the Parsha, when the Torah details the descendants of Adam and delineates the 10 generations from Adam to Noah. And it peppers in all sorts of amazing nuggets about the people of these generations. And it's full of fascinating storylines that are not so well known. Much of this Parsha is not well known. And there are so many profound insights and ideas and lessons. And I'm excited to share what I came up with y'all today. And I want to tell you that the last idea that we're going to share, it revolves around one of the most knotty, maybe the most knotty of all philosophical, theological questions. And that's the question of how do we reconcile God's complete and total knowledge and foreknowledge of everything with the idea that we have free will. If God knows what we're going to choose, it's set in stone. How does free will not conflict with God's total knowledge of everything? Now, that's a very serious question. It's a very good question. And you're going to hear an answer in this week's Parsha podcast, the first maiden episode of year 9 of the Parsha podcast. You're going to hear an answer and an angle that will forever resolve this question for you. So this is an episode to enjoy and to bookmark for whenever you have this question. I want to go through some of the generations from Adam to Noah and share some fascinating ideas and tidbits and storylines. And we begin with Cain. So, of course, Adam and Eve, they have 2 sons, Cain and Abel. And Cain is a murderer. He murders his brother Abel, and he's punished for it. But he also repents. So God tells him, you have to be in exile, and you will be killed for your crimes, but not until 7 generations have elapsed. And he has a son named Enoch. By the way, as a trivia, there are more individual people named Enoch in the Torah. There are 4 different individuals with this name. There are 2 in our Parsha, Enoch, the son of Cain, and Enoch, the son of Jared in chapter 5, verse 18. The second Enoch was the one who died young. He was only 365 when he passed, though not before bearing Methuselah, who would live to 969. So these are the 2 Chanos. Again, the Hebrew name is Chanoch, but the English is Enoch. There are 2 more Chanos/Enochs in Genesis, the grandson of Abraham via Hagar, chapter 25, verse 4, and the eldest son of Reuben, who is the eldest son of Jacob. There are 4 different people in the Torah with this name, Chanoch. No other name has as many individuals with this name, or with the same name. And then I always speculate that it's not a coincidence. The word Chanoch means to train or to educate. And there are more people with this name because this is really the most important of attributes. We're all capable of amazing things. We all have tons of potential, but we're raw and we're undeveloped. And that's the idea of Chanoch, to be trained, to be guided, to be directed, to be educated, that is supremely important and imperative. Maybe that's why there are so many people with this name, because this is an idea that people who want to raise good children and want to reinforce. And of course, the fact that the Torah tells us so many people with this name, maybe that's supposed to filter down to us about the imperative of education. But the first Chanoch, the son of Cain, he is born to Cain. Cain killed his brother, but now Cain has a child. His name is Chanoch, Enoch. And Cain built a city, we're told. Chapter 4, verse 18. He built a city, and the name of the city was called Chanoch, meaning he named it after his son. What a fascinating little factoid. Cain, the murderer of Abel, has a son, Chanoch, Enoch, and he names a city that he builds after his son. Now, why is this important for us to know? What's the lesson for us? Of course, the Torah never tells us any just vignettes or factoids just for us to be aware of. There's some lesson to it. Why is it important that he built a city and he named the city after his son Chanoch? So I looked at the commentaries and they talk about it. The Ramban says a few things about this. First thing he says is that Cain, he was condemned. He was cursed. And therefore, when he did things, he knew that if it was associated with him, it would have no continuity. He, after all, is cursed, and his actions, his handiwork does not succeed, will not succeed. And therefore, when he built the city, he named it after his son, almost as if saying, well, it's not me, it's him. It's attributed to him, and therefore maybe it could have some enduring continuity. If it's associated with Cain, it will not flourish. Now, the Ramban also observes that the verse does not say that he built a city. Vayivein ir, he built a city. And he named it after his son, Chanoch. Rather, it says, Vayibon ir, he was building the city. Why does it say that he was building the city? So the Ramban suggests that because he was cursed, whatever he did failed. And thus he built the city, but he was always building the city. He could never finish it because he was not blessed with the ability to finish because he was cursed. Interesting idea. The Kli Yakar, one of the other commentators on the Torah, he takes this observation into a little bit of a different direction. He says that Chanoch, the city of Chanoch, was never finished. Cain was always building it. Why? Because it was never good enough for him. Cain, after all, he's the one who, because he was miffed, he killed his brother. So he's someone who was not living by the proper ideals and values. And the fact that he was ashamed and embarrassed and one-upped and upstaged by his brother, that caused him to behave in a very inappropriate and rash and violent manner. He's someone who's standing in this world, in the physical world, really matters. If you're someone who's living as a soul, who cares about your destiny in the world to come, in the world of the souls, if you just get embarrassed here in this world, you could just let it wash off of you. It's not so important not to make a big deal about it, because what does it matter? And the Torah is demonstrating, says the Kli Yakar, that he was someone who was so obsessed with this world, with physicality, with the material existence, that he was always building. He was never satisfied. He was always tinkering with it. It was never perfect for him. You know those people who are always trying to perfect their houses and their cars and get new gadgets and all the accessories they need. And they can never settle down. If you make this world, this physical existence, your priority, you will never be happy. Maybe that's an idea about Cain always building the city of Chanoch. But I want to suggest another idea based upon a midrash. The midrash observes that the wicked people like naming cities after themselves. Tiberias, the city of Tiberias, is named after the Roman Emperor Tiberius. Alexandria, named after Alexander the Great. The city of Antioch is named after Antiochus. All these wicked people, they have an inclination to name cities after themselves. And the reason why, says the Midrash, citing a verse in Psalms, because they think that their grave is their eternal home. This is a verse in Psalms chapter 49, verse 12, that the wicked, they think that death is final. And that prompts them to name cities after themselves. There's a very deep idea here, the way I understand this midrash. Everyone wants an eternal legacy. Everyone needs something eternal. The whole idea, the notion of us simply expiring without leaving something lasting, it's just anathema to the human. And the reason is because we harbor an eternal soul. The idea of being transient and temporary and just coming and going and disappearing like a puff of smoke, that agitates us, that rankles us to no end. Cain, he's building a city. What's he trying to do? He's naming it after his son. He's trying to make a legacy, have something lasting in the world. But instead of doing something which really matters, which really endures, instead of trying to create an eternal legacy for himself, he's a city builder. And he says, well, I can't name it after myself because I'm cursed. I'll name it after my son, and I'll have some sort of eternal continuity via my son. I think there's a deep point over here. We all have an instinct to build something permanent. And the mistake that Cain and maybe others made is to focus on this world as the arena in which we build something permanent. And to ignore the actual permanent world, the world of the soul. When a person dies, of course, their physical life ends. And even if they leave something here in this world, there's a building with their name in it. There's a dedication. There's a city named after them. It's also temporary. Where's the city of Hanoch? Where do I find it on the map? No one knows. It doesn't exist. It's long gone. But if a person does one single mitzvah, that mitzvah creates an angel that will never, ever, ever die. And that person's soul will be given life and vitality forever as a result of that mitzvah. We all want to build legacies. We all need to have something permanent and eternal. Cain is a cautionary tale, perhaps, of how not to do it. Now, in verse 18, we begin to read about the generations of Cain. So he has Hanoch, and then, Hanoch has a child. He has a son named Irad, and Irad has a son named Mechuyael, and Mechuyael has a son named Mesushael, and Mesushael has a son named Lamech, or Lamech. Now, we're not told much about these intermediate or intervening generations, Irad, and Mechuyael, and Mesushael. But the Torah spends a lot of time talking about Lamech and the House of Lamech. Now, there's maybe a bit more confusion here because in our Parsha we have two Lamechs. We have this Lamech, chapter 4 Lamech, the son of Mesushael, and we also have Lamech, the son of Mesushelach, or Methuselah, who's the father of Noah. That's in chapter 5, verse 25. Don't get your Lamechs confused. But the Torah spends a lot of time talking about this family, the House of Lamech. He's going to be the one, by the way, who kills Cain. He kills his great-great-great-grandfather. Cain was condemned to die. He died at the hands of his great-great-great-grandson, a gentleman by the name of Lamech. Now, the whole storyline of this family is fascinating and strange. Lamech, well, he gets married. And the Torah tells us that he had two wives, one named Adah and one named Tzila. Now, this whole thing is very strange. We're told that one of them was designated for procreation, and one was designated for recreational intercourse. Rashi tells us this was the way people lived before the flood. It's almost like a sign of the times. It was an era of degeneracy and debauchery. This is the way things were. Every man had two wives. One of them, that would be the wife that she was there to produce children. And the other wife, she was just there to pleasure her husband. And that other wife, meaning the wife that's not there for procreational purposes, they would give her a kos shel ikaron, which means a cup of infertility. It means they would try to give her some medicine to render her infertile. And they would be beautiful and adorned like a bride. They'll be the one who would be like the pal, the friend of the husband. And the other one is just there to procreate every 9 months or 10 months or whatever on schedule. She's there and she will be ignored and she'll be ugly. She's just there to produce children. And this is the way things were before the flood. It was common, we're told, they would have two wives, one for procreational purposes and one just for recreational intercourse. Now, the funny thing about this story, the ironic part of it, is that Lamech has these two wives, and one of them, well, she was supposed to be infertile. She's there just to provide carnal pleasure for her husband. But she got this infertility treatment, meaning treatment to make her infertile, but she ended up with children nonetheless, that's the irony of it. It was a breakthrough case. It was a botched sterilization. And read about the family of Lamech. So again, Lamech is a great-great-great-grandson of Cain. And we read about his children from his two wives. One of them, that was a mistake, right? That's the second wife, Tzila. She was supposed to be infertile. Well, it didn't work out. And then there was fertility nonetheless. So we read, very talented, very creative, very strange family. Ada, she was the one who was supposed to have children. She had a son named Jabal. And he was the first nomadic shepherd. He was the first one to take his flock, we're told, into the deserts, into the wilderness, and he would live in tents 1 month here and 1 month there. So his flocks and his livestock can eat. And once he got rid of all the grazing in the pasture area in one place, he would just move on to another place. So he was the first one to come up with this idea. Very interesting. Now, the next verse tells us that he had a brother, meaning Lamech with his procreational wife, Ada, one son named Yaval, and then there's a similarly named son, also a creative type. This is not Yaval, this is Yuval. And he was the first musician. Okay. Torah tells us, very interesting, that this family, creative, they're innovative, they are entrepreneurial types, creative types. One of them is like, well, why are we doing things like this? Let's become nomadic shepherds. And the other one's like, well, let's take these materials and forge and create harps and lyres and pipes and music. He's a musician. Maybe that's why his brother wanted to escape, couldn't handle all the music. But next, anyhow, we read about Lamech's children with his other wife, Tzila. She was the one who was supposed to be infertile. She was forced to drink this poison, this infertility poison. It was botched. She had children as well. 2 children, a son and a daughter. And these were also interesting and noteworthy personalities. Her son was Tubal-Cain. Tubal-Cain. Now, if that name sounds familiar, this is a descendant of Cain, and this is the 7th generation from Cain, and his name is Tubal-Cain. That's the son from Tzila, and there's also a daughter named Naamah, who we discover later on is the wife of Noah. Now, why is he called Tubal-Cain? So Rashi tells the word Tuval means spice or embellishment. This guy, from the family of Cain, from the line of Cain, the son of Lamech with his recreational wife, we call her Tzila. He has a son Tubal-Cain, and he's there to embellish and spice up Cain. What's Cain? What is his craft? Cain is a murderer. Tubal-Cain, he was a metallurgist. He forged all sorts of metal implements. Copper and iron, we're told. And the reason why he did that, he invented these processes, was to spice up the craft of Cain. Cain's a murderer, but he's not an efficient murderer. In fact, the Midrash tells us, Midrash elaborates on what Rashi is telling us, that when Cain murdered Abel, he stabbed him so many times because it was just not an efficient way to kill him. So his great, I think it's 4 greats grandson, he's like, I gotta improve on the craft of Cain. I'm gonna make it even better. I'm gonna make these metal implements nice and neat, clean and painless, more humane way to engage in the craft of Cain. Unlike Cain, who had to stab his brother many times, now it's more streamlined. This is one of the children of Lamech from Tzila. And then the second child is Naamah. Rashi tells us that this is the wife of Noah. Again, a daughter of Lamech via Tzila. And I will tell you another interesting factoid. There are two people named Lamech, as I mentioned earlier. There are two people named Lamech in Genesis. One of them is Noah's father, and one of them is Noah's father-in-law. What are the odds of that happening? There's only two people we know in history that have this name, Lamech, and one is the father of Noah, and one is the father of Naamah, the wife of Noah. One from the family, the line of Cain, and one from the line of Seth, who is the other son of Adam that we have not yet talked about. And this is a strange and creative and inventive family. The first shepherd, the first musician, the first metallurgist, and then their sister, she marries Noah. Now, later on we read how in verse 23 and 24, Lamech has a conversation with his wives. He's talking to his wives, Adah and Sila, and he's trying to get their attention. Listen to me. I killed someone, but don't punish me. What's going on over here? So Lamech, he's the guy who actually killed Cain. Cain killed Abel. But God said, I'm going to protect you. He gave him the mark of Cain on his forehead. For 7 generations, you will survive. But after 7 generations, you're gonna go. Well, 6 generations is to Lamech. Once Lamech has children, that means that there are 7 generations to Cain. Now Cain is vulnerable. And we're told, Rashi tells us, that Lamech went hunting. This strange and peculiar individual in our story, he went hunting with his son, Tuval Cain. Maybe Tuval Cain's he's the weapons manufacturer. He's the guy who's selling weapons. So they went hunting maybe to try out some of the new technology. And Lamech, we're told, incidentally, he was blind. He saw, but not so well. So they saw a figure in the distance. And it looked like an animal. Is it a deer? Is it maybe dinner for us? Let's try out the new bow and arrow, maybe that Tuval Cain invented, and shoot down this animal. But he didn't see so well. So he shoots the figure. It turns out that figure is Cain. Oh no, he's murdered Cain. Accidentally, of course. Cain, after 7 generations, he is dead, killed at the hand of Lamech, who shot him accidentally. Now, once they go and they discover that he actually killed Cain. So there's another tragic epilogue to the story. Lamech discovers that he has killed his own great-great-great-grandfather, Cain, the son of Adam and Eve. He was so distraught, he was so distressed that he clapped his hands together, but being blind, he didn't realize that his son, Tuval Cain, his head was right between his hands, and Lamech must have been very strong. When he smashed his hands together, he crushed the skull of his own son, killing him. So not only did he kill Cain, he killed Tuval Cain, this Lamech guy. Lamech 1, not to be confused with Lamech 2. We need like a family tree here. A detailed family tree here. Now, as a result of this, Lamech's wives, those 2 wives, remember Adah and Sila, one of them is the procreational wife, one's the recreational wife. They both say, we're not interested in spending time with you. You're a murderer. We're no longer going to be with you conjugally. They abstained from him. They withheld marital intercourse. They did a strike on him. And he goes to speak to them. Let me stop it. Do you guys know all these stories? I'll tell you, this is the part of Bereishis. It's such a long parsha. We have so little time to cover it. There's so many details here that are so fascinating. We just, we paper over them. We don't know them well enough. Maybe you do. I don't know them well enough. So he's trying to persuade his wives to be with him, to cohabit with him. And he makes an argument in the next verse. He tells him, Cain killed someone willfully. He murdered his own brother. And God gave him a grace period of 7 generations before he was punished. I murdered someone accidentally. If Cain got 7 generations, I should get 77 generations of a grace period before you punish me. That was his argument to persuade his wives to come back to him. Now, the very next verse, it seems like we're done with the family of Cain. It goes back to Adam, and Adam spawning a new child, a new son, a surviving son, that is Seth. Adam till now had 2 sons. Abel, he was killed by Cain. And Cain now is dead because he was accidentally shot by Lamech. Now we're going back to Adam, and he has a surviving son, that is Seth. Now, we're in the middle of discussing the story of Lamech and his dispute with his wives. They're withholding conjugal relations from Lamech because of what he did. He killed Cain. He killed Cain. And somehow it segues back to Adam. Adam had a son, Seth. So Rashi explains the continuity. Very interesting. Lamech is so distraught at his forced celibacy, he comes to Adam. And he's complaining about his wives. They're punishing me unfairly. So Adam goes to Lamech's wives and says to them, listen, your husband committed a crime. He killed, accidentally of course, but he killed Cain, and he killed also accidentally his own son, Cain. But it's not your job to punish him. You leave that to God. Your job, you're married to him, he's your husband. You should not withhold the normal marital relations from him. You do your job. Don't worry about it. Let God punish him. Your responsibility is to be with your spouse. That's what Adam tells the 2 wives of Lamech, Ada and Sila. And they respond, who are you to tell us that we should be with our spouses? You yourself are not practicing what you preach. Why? Because Adam had also withdrawn from his spouse, from Eve, for 130 years. As a result of the sin, or in the aftermath of the sin, Adam separated himself from his wife, Eve. So they tell him, you should first practice what you preach before you tell us to practice what you preach. If a spouse, if the 2 units of the spouse are supposed to be together, they're supposed to be intimate with each other, you should do the same with your wife. And Adam accepted their criticism. And Adam went back to his wife. And as a result of that, as a result of the dispute between Lamech and his wives regarding withholding conjugal relations as a result of the sin or the accidental murdering of Cain and Cain, they go to Adam, and Adam says, you have to be with your spouse. They say, you have to be with your spouse. He goes back to Eve, and they bear a child, Seth. So this squabble over Lamech's conjugal life, that's the catalyst to get Adam back into the procreation scene. And that leads to the birth of Seth, who is going to be the line of Adam that will endure. And that's the line that's going to bear Noah and eventually Abraham, Isaac, and Jacob, and the Jewish people. It's kind of a fascinating little part of the story. Seth, who spawned the line of Noah and Abraham, he was conceived after 130 years of abstinence between Adam and Eve, and Adam had to be guilted into cohabiting with his wife because of Lamech's marital troubles. Just absolutely fascinating. Now, I want to share one more fascinating genealogical idea, and that is Noah. So in chapter 5, we finish with the line of Cain all the way through Lamech. In chapter 5, we go on to the line of Seth. And it's going to run from Seth all the way to Noah. And the Parsha is going to end with setting the stage for the flood. It details the moral degradation of the antediluvian society that will eventually result in the flood, and the great reset that's going to happen as a result of the flood. And if you look at chapter 5, as it runs through the genealogy, Noah is an outlier. All the other people become parents at a much younger age than he does. So Adam, well, he has children right away, but maybe Adam is a special case. Seth, he is 105 when Enosh is born. And Enosh is 90 when Canaan is born. And Canaan is 70 when Mahalalel is born. And Mahalalel is 65 when Jared is born. And Jared is 62 when Chanoch Enoch II is born. And Chanoch Enoch II is 65 when Methuselah is born. And Methuselah is 87 when Lamech, again Lamech 2, not the one from Cain, but the one from Seth, Methuselah is 87 when he's born. And Lamech, the father of Noah, is 82 when Noah is born. So how old are these people when they have their first child? It's anywhere from 62 to 105. And if we don't include Adam, he's a special case. The average is 78.25 years old. That's when they're having their first child. What about Noah himself? How old is Noah when he becomes a father? Chapter 5, verse 32. Vahi Noach ben chamesh me'os shana. He's 500 years old when he gave birth to Shem, Ham, and Yefes, his 3 sons. That's a big discrepancy. The oldest of his antecedents was 105 when they gave birth. And Noah is childless until he's 500. Isn't it strange? Isn't it odd? What do we make of this discrepancy? Now, Rashi notices this and asks the question. Everyone, by the time they're 100, they have children. Noah takes him till 500 for him to become a father. So Rashi answers. God rendered Noah infertile because God reasoned that it's better for Noah to not have children. Why? Because if Noah will have children and they are wicked, well, they're going to have to die in the flood. And it's not to Noah's benefit, it's to his detriment to have to witness his own sons dying in the flood. And if Noah has children at the same pace, at the same rate as everyone else, and they're righteous, well, think about how many arks he'll have to build by the time the flood comes around to accommodate all of his children. And for that reason, God rendered Noah infertile, and he had no children until he was 500 years old. That's Rashi tells us. Rashi's commentary to chapter 5, verse 32 of the book of Genesis. Fascinating. Noah was infertile, and God made him infertile. Why? For his benefit. Because either way, he's better off not having children. It would not be ideal for him to have children at the same time that everyone else had. Because God knew that Noah would eventually build the ark to survive the flood. And if he had had children at the same pace, at the same timeline as everyone else had, he may have had untold numbers of children and descendants by the time the flood comes. And either way, that's bad. If these descendants are righteous, well, Noah would have to build so many arks to accommodate them. And if they were wicked, he'll have to witness them dying in the flood. And therefore, Rashi tells us, God withheld his fertility, and Noah was childless until he was 500. Here is the part to bookmark that I mentioned at the top of the podcast. If you read this Rashi carefully, you will notice something very surprising. Rashi presents this idea as if God is speaking. Amar HaKadosh Baruch Hu, God said, so to speak. If Noah has children and they are wicked, they will die, and it's not good for Noah to have to witness his children dying in the flood. And if Noah has children and they're righteous, well, it's not good for Noah either, because they'll have to build so many arks. Therefore, it's better for Noah to not have children, and he was infertile until the age of 500. God is speaking here. And he's talking about the theoretical, the phantom children of Noah, the ones that were never born because he was infertile. And God says, well, either way, it's not good for Noah. Because if they're righteous, it's not good for him because he'll have to build so many arks. And if they're wicked, it's not good for him because, well, he'll have to witness them dying. You read this Rashi, and there's a major question. God is saying that if Noah's children are righteous, it's not good. If Noah's children, the ones that would be born, are wicked, it's also not good. Wait a minute. Does God not know if Noah's children will be righteous or wicked? You told me that God is all-knowing. And God seems to have a doubt here. If Noah were to have children, well, if they're righteous, he'll have to build so many arks. And if they're wicked, well, they'll have to witness them dying. Does God not know the righteousness of Noah's would-be children? There's a very, very deep point here. And I heard this idea from Rabbi Berkowitz. How many other children did Noah have besides for the three that are mentioned, Shem, Ham, and Yafes? He had 0 more children. Noah, his whole lifetime, he had only 3 children. Perhaps you recall, it's in next week's Parsha. After the flood, Noah curses one of his sons. He curses his son, Ham. And why? So Rashi there tells us because Ham, castrated him. Ham did not want to have to divide the world amongst any more than just the 3 sons of Noah. If Noah has 10 more kids, well, there's a lot more people to divide up the world amongst. He didn't want to shrink his portion. And therefore he said, I want dad to retire. No more babies for you. And that's why he castrated him. And thus, Noah's counterfactual 4th son never existed. And by the way, Rashi tells us that's why Noah specifically curses Ham's 4th son, Canaan, because Ham, he prevented Noah's 4th son from existing, therefore his 4th son, Canaan, absorbed the brunt of Noah's curse. So Noah had only 3 sons. He never had any more sons. This category of Noah's other sons, it never existed. It's only theoretical. And this is how God can have doubts, so to speak, about their righteousness. Yes, a person has free will. And in this capacity, these qualities, they're given free rein to do whatever they want, of course, within certain limits. And God does not tamper with a person's free will. Yet, because God exists outside of time, God knows what a person who is constricted to time will have chosen. But if someone never existed, they never were born, they never exercised their free will, even God, who exists outside of time, does not know if they'll be righteous or wicked, had they existed. Again, a very profound comment here in Rashi. This is an answer to the most knotty of philosophical questions. How do you reconcile free will? We have free will, and God does not influence our free will. Yet, God has complete knowledge of everything, even the things in the future. Here's the answer. God only knows what you chose. He knows it before you chose, because he exists outside of time. He exists after you chose, when, of course, the decisions have been made and it is known what you chose. Now, how God exists outside of time, that's a very different subject. We're not capable of understanding that. But once you accept that premise, the whole question disappears. And indeed, for free will decisions that were never made, that were never exercised, the type of decisions, the free will decisions of Noah's phantom sons who never existed, well, regarding that, God does not know. Will they be righteous or wicked? God doesn't know. But either way, it's not to Noah's benefit, and therefore they never existed. Absolutely fascinating, absolutely profound. Bookmark it. In the maiden episode of year 9 of the Parsha podcast, we gave an angle, a powerful and fascinating angle to explain this very difficult and knotty question. And now we're up to the part of the show, the D part. We have the idea, which is really a bunch of ideas based upon the commentaries and going through the genealogies of Genesis. That's the I. But Torah is our ID, an insight and a dilemma. And the first dilemma of this cycle is about Adam and David. We read a most mysterious verse, chapter 5, verse 1. Ze Sefer Toldos Ha'adam. This is the book of the chronicles of Adam, of man, of Adam. Rashi tells us there are lots of interpretations, but the Talmud gives us one interpretation. This is the book of the chronicles of Adam. There is a book called the Chronicles of Adam. In this book, it says every generation and the bigwigs of that generation, the wise people, the talented people, the movers and the shakers. There's a book that lists the future generations of the world, of the descendants of Adam. And the Talmud tells us that Adam himself was shown this book, and he began to peruse it, looking at every generation and the great people and the talented people and the accomplishments of the people of that particular generation. And the Talmud tells us that when he arrived at the generation of Rabbi Akiva, he was delighted with Rabbi Akiva's Torah, but he was saddened with his death. There's a book, the book of Adam, the book of the Chronicles of Adam, and it has all the secrets of all the future generations that have yet to exist, or that have existed. The Midrash tells us that this book was shown to Moshe as well. And the Midrash elaborates, doesn't just list the wise people and the important people. Dor v'shoftov, every generation and its judges, every generation and its kings, every generation and its wise people, every generation and its leaders, every generation and its enforcers, every generation and its parnasa, which means like the material leaders or the financial leaders, every generation and its thieves, every generation and its bandits, every generation and its prophets. There's a book. In this book, it talks about all the generations of the descendants of Adam, and in every generation, it lists all the important people of that particular generation. There is a lot of literature about this book, and it's very mysterious, but some of the sources imply that it's not just the big movers and shakers that have an entry in this book. Actually, every single descendant of Adam has an entry. Now, there are lots and lots of questions about this book, what's included, when did God show it to Adam, why did God show this to Adam, who else saw it? We know Moshe saw it. The Talmud tells that one of the sages of the Talmud saw it as well. And obviously the most tantalizing of all the questions, what does it say about us? Is there an entry with my name on it? Is there? And how would I get a peek, get a glimpse into this book? It seems like it's an unanswerable question, but I will tell you, yours truly, the host of the Parsha podcast, Yaakov Wolbe, RabbiWolbe.com. I think I actually have an answer of how to find what it says by your entry You want to know the answer, I know. I'll tell you the truth. I'm hoping this year, one of my New Year's resolutions is to restart and resurrect the moribund newsletter that I used to send out. So I'm hoping, it's already late Tuesday night, I'm hoping to send one out before the festival begins tomorrow. And it's about this question. And it's the answer, how to get a glimpse into your own entry in the book of the Chronicles of Adam. But that's not the dilemma of this podcast. There is only one entry that I am aware of, that when Adam read it, he took action. He saw an entry that made him make a very dramatic and radical decision. He saw the entry of King David. And he saw that David was destined to live for 3 hours and then to die. He was going to be someone who dies only 3 hours into his life. And this bothered Adam very much. And he says, he tells God, is there any way to fix this, to give David more life? Is there any way that we could improve the situation? Why is David destined to live only for 3 hours? And God says, listen, this is my plan. Don't ask questions about my plan. But Adam persists. And Adam says, well, how many years do you have allotted for me? So God responds, 1,000 years. And Adam asks, is there an ability for me to give a gift in heaven? And God says, yes. Those years that you have are giftable. It's like air miles. You could give it to your cousin, give it to your friend. Some programs only. Adam discovers he has 1,000 years and they're giftable. And he tells God, take 70 years of my life and give it to David. And the Midrash elaborates that Adam took a document, a contract, and he wrote a contract, a gift contract, and God signed it, and the angels signed it, and Adam signed it. We have a deal. And indeed, David lived for 70 years, I guess 70 years plus 3 hours. And Adam died at the age of 930. This entry in this book triggered the event of the gifting of 70 years from Adam to David. Now, this raises all sorts of questions. Why was Adam particularly concerned about David? What's the connection between Adam and David? I want to focus on this dilemma, on the whole idea of apportioning some of your life to another person. You can write a document. You need to sign it. It seems like you need to have God and an angel sign it as well. But we have a few stories I want to tell you. One story is from the Chafetz Chaim. The Chafetz Chaim lived in the city of Radin. And in the city of Radin was the yeshiva of Radin, and the head of the yeshiva was Rabbi Naftali Trapp, a great sage. And he was sick, and he was dying, and the students were desperate to extend his life. And they decided to do something akin to what Adam did. Everyone to contribute some portion of their life to their great teacher. Some gave a month, some gave a few months, some even gave a year, 2 years. And once they had assembled a whole amount of time for the great sage, they went into the Chafetz Chaim and they said, how much of your life are you willing to give to your colleague, to Rabbi Trapp? I read a few versions of the story. In one version I read that the Chafetz Chaim mulled over this question for some time. In a second version of the story I read that the Chafetz Chaim said, come back to me tomorrow, I need some time to think about it. When the Chavetz Chaim finished his deliberations, he told the students, I'm willing to give 1 minute. 1 minute to my colleague, Rabbi Trupp. And of course, the lesson is the power of 1 minute, and the story goes on to say that the students were so shaken by this episode that they commit themselves to study how much you can do in 1 minute and how significant of a gift is 1 minute of life. But this is an example of this concept that the years of your life are giftable. And I want to tell you a frightening story. And the people of this story are people that I know fairly well. There was a young woman who had an aneurysm and fell into a coma. And based upon the medical diagnosis, she had very little hope to ever get out of it and to survive. And her father prayed. And her father told God, take me instead of my daughter. And very soon afterwards, the daughter made a complete recovery. And very soon after, he was diagnosed with a very aggressive form of cancer. And against the medical likelihood, she fully recovered, and he died very soon afterwards. Terrifying, frightening, powerful story that is based upon the same concept that years of a person's life, if there's some way to do it, we can't really get God to sign off on it. We can't see that document, but it is possible to gift those years and those moments away. And here's the dilemma. It is a serious dilemma to get the year started with. Is there someone that you would give up some of your life for? Is there a David to your Adam? Is there something that would prompt you to do something like this? What variables would you take into account when making such a decision? That's a heavy dilemma. Something to consider, something to mull over. A very serious way to get year 9 of the Parsha podcast started. Well, we started it. Thank you, Almighty God. When I woke up this morning, we didn't have a podcast. And then I went to play paintball with my kids. We had a great time. But with the help of the Almighty, we got a podcast in before the festival. It's the shortest week, the shortest possible week for any Parsha. Simchas Torah, we read V'zos HaBracha on Friday, and the very next day is Shabbos Parsha Bereishis. It's the most difficult Parsha. There's more commentary in this Parsha than any other. And we thank the Almighty that we were able to get a Parsha podcast. I hope you enjoyed it. 10% of how much of the amount of pleasure that I garnered from this Parsha podcast. I'm so delighted and excited to begin to embark upon year 9. We hope and pray that it's a successful year of Parsha podcast. We all can study the Almighty's Holy Torah week after week, day after day. We hope and pray that we can successfully record a new Parsha podcast each week. We can't take any moment for granted. Even 1 minute is worth a lot. The Chavetz Chaim taught us. If we're gifted life, it's a tremendous gift. Every time we breathe in, we have to thank the Almighty. It's a new gift. Every time our heart pumps, it's a new gift. And to be able to breathe and to live and to study Torah, well, for that, we really have to be appreciative to the Almighty. I thank you for listening. I'm excited for this year. My email just says rabbiwolbe@gmail.com. We have a plan for this year. Please, God, we're going to do, starting not from next week, the following week, we'll do the Parsha podcast live. We'll do it live. Remember that line. We'll do it live. We'll do it live on Zoom, towards Zoom, Tuesdays at 8 p.m. Please, God. It's a trial. It's an experiment. We'll try it out, see how it goes. But have a wonderful rest of your day. A wonderful Hoshana Rabbah and Shmini Atzeres and Simchas Torah and Shabbos upcoming. And please don't tell the Almighty. We'll talk again next week for Parshas Noach. And as always, the email just says rabbiwolbe@gmail.com.